You're live. Three, two, one, countdown. Testing, testing, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the party. It's Austrian Grand Prix weekends live out of the Red Bull Ring in Spielberg, and we are back to talk about qualifying ahead of this Grand Prix. It's a huge weekend for the championship. McLaren looked very strong after the first couple of days of practice, although I will say the Alex Dunn talking point has been a big one over these last 24 hours. The big talking point probably for these next 60 minutes or so until qualifying is going to be a little bit of Max Verstappen Mercedes stuff. I'm sure we're going to talk about it later on the day as well, but welcome all back to the party. I know it's been a little while since I've run one of these because I've been away. I was in Dallas at the end of last month, then I came back for a week, then I went out to the Montreal Grand Prix, and now I'm back for a little bit. So good to talk with you all. Ferrari hoping. What happened in F2? Well, this is what happened in F2. It's on the screen right now. I just thought I'd mention this right at the start of the little live show here. But this guy who is currently upside down on your screen just sent it down the inside of Limblad to a pretty absurd degree, and they went 3 wide into turn 3. Good luck with that. He hits the inside of Limblad, flips his car, and then ends up, I mean, like, this is a scene out of Top Gun, right? The original Top Gun. Before he then rolls over again and lands upside down. So it was a pretty major incident. The race has only just resumed, and I think there's more yellow flags because it's F2, baby. It's chaos. It is what it is. But welcome all to the show. How will Lando bottle it this week, says Ash. Look, let's just get him through Q3 first. We'll get him through Q3. And then we'll see how it goes. But yeah, welcome all to the show. If you're new here, drop a like on the stream. We're going to talk about everything in the next hour before qualifying gets underway. Looks like a great Grand Prix to attend, Austria. People say up at turn 3, the view you get of like the entire track is pretty mega. But let's talk about a couple of things. Before we kind of get into the F1 stuff, I wanted to discuss a little bit about the F1 movie. I don't know if you guys have seen it yet. I actually watched it again last night. I was invited to this event by, effectively it was like an IWC event. They sponsor the film, right? All their watches are in the film, and they had a screening of it and a little bit of a thing going on. So Lincoln says, you think he's making Q3? I do think that Lando is making Q3, unless... And also, you got to remember this time around, because of the way they've put the gravel at turn 9 and turn 10, track limits is less of an issue. Going off into the gravel is an issue, but like you're not going to get a lap time deleted as much for track limits nowadays. So there is also that. But yeah, the F1 film, I'll just go to the small screen so you guys can see what I'm talking about, is out. I don't know if you guys have seen it yet, but you know, I've actually seen it twice now in the last couple of days. Definitely one of the films of all time. I think, to me, the most unrealistic part of the movie is when they're at Monza. This is no spoilers, by the way. I don't really want to get into spoilers, but at Monza, Brundle on the comms says it looks like there could be rain. Rain is potentially forecast, or something to that effect. And then the rain actually happens, which obviously never happens in real life, right? Like whenever they say it's going to rain, it never does. So that I thought was particularly unrealistic. But yeah, it's an hour until qualifying. If Max gets any kind of penalty, is he going to get a race ban? That is correct. Max has 11 points on his license. That is going to disappear after this weekend. So the teams may still try and get Max a couple extra points on his license. Brad Pitt's 61 for an F1 movie. To be honest, that didn't really bother me that much. Like, he looks pretty good for 61. And I think what's funny is when they do the throwback of when he used to be a driver back in the 90s, and he still looks like Brad Pitt today. Like, he doesn't look like he's 20. But it is what it is. No, I know, it's a movie. And it was a good movie. I think what I find exciting about this is like this type of thing wouldn't have been possible 5-10 years ago. Like there was not enough interest in the sport for people to care about making something like this. And it's a great advert for the sport. I just think it's funny. Like people will watch this film and then they'll probably watch a race and they'll be expecting like unbelievable fireworks, like absolute cinema, Martin Scorsese every weekend. It's not really like that in real life. Although I did think that this was a pretty cool moment. Like the way that they did this is a clip from the film at the bottom here. The way that they kind of, let's say, overlaid the Apex GP stuff over the top of some of the moments that you could look back on for the season. I thought that was pretty nice. They didn't de-age him. They did de-age him in the throwback scenes, but like they didn't de-age him that much. I don't know. It's still, he didn't really look like mid-20s in the throwback scenes. But they didn't really exist. There weren't that many of those, to be fair. Loved Crashgate as a subplot. Yeah, I think it's funny to think about maybe new fans watching F1 after watching the film and expecting that kind of behaviour to just be how it is in F1, that there's always some team that's... I mean, it's not like it hasn't happened. Crashgate was a thing, but, you know, like, we do try and race ethically, most teams. Mate, it's a movie, stop with the comparison. I think my point is, like, it's great for the sport. As an F1 fan, I found it impossible to, like, fully switch my brain up. But I think watching it a second time, I was a little bit more appreciative, actually, of the quality of the filmmaking involved. Like, the wheel-to-wheel racing, all of that stuff was done brilliantly. So even at the start, when he was at, I think in many respects, the most visually spectacular part of the movie is right at the beginning, when he's at Daytona. That was pretty brilliant as well. But yeah, we're not doing any more spoiler territory. I mean, this is all we're getting into. So let's talk about what's been happening over the last couple of days. Christian Horner said this today: Austria is like a home race for us. There aren't as many McLaren fans here. Our goal is to make sure that those who are there cry on Sunday because we were better. And I saw an article about this saying that Christian Horner declares war on McLaren or whatever. And, well, I don't know if McLaren fans are going to be doing that much crying. I also find the concept of we were better always quite entertaining, because it's like, it's just Max, isn't it, really? Like, it's just, if they win, it's because Max was better rather than anything spectacular. Skip de-aging, it looks like that movie, The Irishman. I've actually not seen that film. Alpine is the most ethical team in history. They might be the team, well, most chaotic team in recent history, because they're going to have a new boss soon. That's according to rumours anyway. There's obviously lots of drama happening at Alpine, but it's Alpine, baby. That is what it is. It's always how it is. But yeah, welcome all to the show. If you guys are new, the movie will be liked by people who don't or haven't watched F1. Yeah, I saw a quote from Jerry Bruckheimer, and he said that when they were doing screenings of it, they were, before the film played, they would ask people in the audience, okay, have you heard of F1? Have you ever watched a race? And maybe like 15% of people would put their hands up. I mean, obviously they'd heard of it, but you know what I mean? Like, were they interested in it? And then after the film, they asked people, do you want to go to a race after watching this? Or are you interested in watching more F1? And like everyone's hand would go up, which is, if you watch the film, that will not be a surprise to anyone. Like, it, you know, it paints the sport in a great light. But I do fear that somebody is going to watch that film at some point over the next year or so. They're going to watch the film, they're going to tune in to like Monaco 2026, and they're going to be like, what, you know what I mean? Like, what am I watching here? As if, let's say Monaco 2024 or something, right? Like, you get a race like that, and but you know, it's a movie. At the end of the day, it's a movie. So we got qualifying to talk about. Horner's been yapping about McLaren, trying to get in their heads. I don't know if it's going to work. Max isn't far off the pace, but the McLarens have been stronger. But, okay, let's talk about this Russell-Max-Mercedes thing, because I don't know if my opinion on this has changed, but I'm actually not 100% sure what I think about it and what is currently going on. So Russell said the other day that Max and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, really, like what you think is actually happening right now, because Toto's been, well, I wouldn't say he's been clear, but he's at least talked to the media about this over the last couple of days, discussing a few pieces of the puzzle here. And one of those is George is going to get the new contract. We are considering what Max's availability is in the context of what contracts we sign. So, okay, my read on it as of today is that the most likely outcome is that George gets a new deal, but Toto is speaking with Max to kind of consider what the possibilities might be in the future, and that may dictate what type of deal they do with George. That's like my current feeling, because I still don't really believe that they're going to drop George for Max. Although I'm sure some people would say that they should 100% do that, no brainer, no questions asked. And I get that argument as well. I personally don't think they will, but I think what's happening at the moment is that Toto's having those conversations. It's obviously not good for Red Bull to have those conversations. Russell I think Russell looks very confident about the current situation. I don't know. I feel like George knows a bit more than he's letting on with what he says publicly. And as I said in the video yesterday, I think there's an element here where George, the more he says about, oh yeah, they're going to sign Max, the better it may eventually look for him when they don't, or when they re-sign him or whatever. But I think if I'm Toto, I kind of want to know, okay, what's Max thinking for next year? What type of deal might he sign, either to stay at Red Bull on the current deal or to go somewhere else? Could that mean he's available? So like, the point is, I don't think that Toto is going to sign George on a 3-4 year contract. Like, I think he's going to sign him on a shorter term deal, if he does, based on this. Yeah, I think that's what I'm thinking, Manas. Like, if George gets a 1 year extension or something, right? Like, not, you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't give... Exactly. I think, but based on what's happened over the last couple of days, I think that's now the most likely scenario, that George gets an extension, but not like a long-term extension. Because if I'm Max, I don't really want to stay at Red Bull, but equally, I don't think that... I can't guarantee that Mercedes are the best team. And who knows what happens at McLaren, right? Like, okay, maybe McLaren come into next year. They also have a great car, Mercedes powered. McLaren are once again the best team. Maybe what we are currently seeing continues. Piastri continues to assert dominance. Lando collapses mentally. Zach Brown's thinking that, well, maybe we could get Max. Max wants to go there. All of a sudden, 2027 becomes an option for Max to simply join the best team. If you sign a contract at Mercedes, Toto's going to want to get you locked down. What if Mercedes don't deliver the car again? You know, so I think for Max and for Mercedes, I'm not so sure it makes so much sense to put pen to paper now. If I'm Toto, I think what I do is I give George a 1 year extension and I reevaluate depending on what happens next year. And then maybe I just keep doing that. Because also I think George is a driver who kind of thrives under that bit of pressure. Like, we know what happened with Checo last year. They gave him the new contract at Monaco and then he just completely collapsed. Now, he was already in the process of collapsing, but they gave him the new contract last year with the intention that Checo would start to deliver more because they'd given him the new deal. And that did not happen at all, right? It was a complete shambles. So I think with George, maybe it doesn't affect him too much, but when he doesn't have a deal, when the driver has to keep on performing, you know, they get paid enough money that they can perform under some pressure. So yeah, we'll see what they do. Yeah, I think Step J, you're probably right. They'll give him like a 1+1, but the option will be on their side as to whether they extend it or something. Why would George do that and not just leave to Aston? I mean, Mercedes would just look like the stronger team. I don't know how much faith you can have in Aston for a couple of reasons. Firstly, Newey has been very clear that their simulator is broken and they need 2 years to fix it. Secondly, Honda might not be what they currently are. You know, we might be talking like Muck Honda all over again. You never know. And Mercedes are always going to be like a powerhouse. Whether they win or not is a question, but like, George will not want to leave Mercedes. There's no way George will leave of his own volition. So I think Toto's playing mind games, putting Red Bull under pressure. I also kind of agree. I can see Max at Mercedes, George at Aston, Fernando retiring. I don't think Fernando wants to retire before 2026. Like, he's at least going to drive next year, Fernando, surely. Like, that's the whole point. The whole point of joining Aston was literally for this 2026 year. So he's not going to leave before he drives it, unless they kick him out. But I don't know. They're going to kick out Fernando the year before the change? Pretty unlikely. I think the possibility of Max taking a year if he doesn't win this year is a high possibility. Yeah, I also don't disagree, Mohammed. I think that's something to think about. Like the idea of a sabbatical and come back in 2027. I don't want to see it, obviously, because Max is box office, but we'll see. Any chance of Dunn getting the Cadillac seat? Why would George sign a... So I'll give that in seconds. Why would George sign a 1 year with the possibility of Max replacing you if other teams would give you a 2+? Because it's Mercedes, right? Like, I think the team just makes so much sense. I don't know. I don't think George will be motivated by... George is like the most confident driver on the grid. If Toto gives him a 1 year deal, he'll be like, yeah, okay, sound. And I'll just keep delivering and you'll give me another 1 year deal after this. Fine, whatever. I don't care. Like, I'll win the championship. Like that's his mentality. I don't think George is going to be swayed by another team giving him a 2+. George obviously would much prefer a longer term deal, and he will talk to other teams to try and gain some leverage. But I don't think George would leave Mercedes. Even if give him any sort of deal, George, I think, will stay. What was the other thing I was going to answer? Yeah, Dunn getting the Cadillac seat. We're going to get to Dunn in a second and whether he could be someone to consider. The F2 race is still ongoing. Where's Dunn? Dunn's down in 10th. He actually started 3rd, so he's not had the greatest F2 race here. Rab, what do you think about the fact that the regs next year are shifting to conventional turbo layouts like Ferrari has, where it's not split? Good question. And I mean, I don't want to say it, but you know how it goes. There's already been talk about, Ferrari, they're looking pretty good for next year. Their car, like the development's looking strong. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to get into Ferrari copium yet. The season's not even anywhere near over. Okay, and this is the other thing I wanted to get into, Sleepwalker. Because Helmut Marko says, we can't take this seriously. Russell talks too much. So, okay, take that as you will. But then the other point is on, okay, could it be Max and George in the same team at the same time? The answer seems to be possibly, but I really don't know. Toto's come out to the media a lot of times and said, I mean, he's done it today and he keeps on doing it, to say, look, the chances that he goes to Mercedes, Max, is very slim compared to the chances of them keeping George Russell. Like that's basically what he's been saying. And okay, fair enough. He then also said, I had Rosberg and Hamilton fighting for a championship. Everything else after that is easy. And he hasn't ruled out the idea of bringing in Max for Kimi. I don't know. Toto's words on Kimi have been quite interesting because he talked to the Sky Sports today and he said that Kimi's progress, like his trajectory is, I think he said all right or something. Like he kind of implied good, but he implies that Kimi has been, you know, let's say meeting expectations, not necessarily exceeding them, which I think is true and justified and whatever. And Kimi's been fine, but compared to what they expected, he's maybe not like overachieved, let's say. But, you know, you've also got to recognize that Kimi's just finished school, right? Like he literally did his exams last week and he had to leave Canada immediately so he could study for them, right? So, you know, that's now out the way for Kimi. The feeling is maybe like the additional focus will help him. That's an argument. The idea of them dropping Kimi in favor of Max, I just don't see it happening. Like, I get the idea that Max and George would be like an incredible powerhouse team. It would be fireworks, and I would love to see it. And it would be an incredible duo that could maybe win you a championship even without the best car. But is it necessary, right? I mean, sure, I guess you can get it done. If you wanted to get it done, you probably could get it done. But then what happens with Kimi? Where do you send him? Do you send him anywhere? Like, what happens to his career at that point? I just don't see Mercedes doing it. But yeah, interested to hear your thoughts on that. It's either keep the future world champion, pretend or get the current world champion. Yeah, I don't know. It's just Toto's thrown it out there that maybe George and Max could be teammates, and like I don't want to get too excited. Is my point. As much as I think that Mercedes are doing the right thing with their current lineup, it is a more boring approach. Like, would I like them to drop Kimi for Max? I mean, like, yeah, I guess so. Like, that would be entertainment. Max and George in the same team, not in a million years. Yeah, I just don't see. It just doesn't seem like what Mercedes should do. Not to say they couldn't do it, but it's like, Hamilton joins in 2013, then in 2014 they have this very strong lineup, but it's not like they didn't bring this lineup in just for the new regulations, whereas the idea of bringing in Max and George for the new regs, and it's not like Mercedes can just send Kimi to Williams, or, that would just, it would seem like a mistake. It would seem like a mistake. So, what's good super ranking? Yeah, glad you, well, I don't know if you did enjoy, but I had a good chat with Cameron the other day. Do I underestimate Piastri? Possibly I do. I'm open to discussion on that. I think everyone has their biases. But we'll see. I mean, people will say, well, Alex Dunn was within 7/10 or 7/100ths of Piastri or whatever. We'll get to that in a second. They're not dropping Kimi. Since when did you do pre-shows? I started doing pre-shows. I think I did one for Saudi, maybe. I've done a couple this year when I can. But yeah, I'm going to run these whenever I'm around, whenever I'm at home. I'll run a 1 hour pre-show before qualifying and before the race. So qualifying is due to get underway in about 40 minutes time. We are going to talk about qualifying, what we expect to happen, but I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about this Max Verstappen Mercedes piece, because it just doesn't seem to go away. And like, even George himself throws it into the conversation all the time. I mean, like, I don't know, Russell, he just loves playing games, doesn't he? That's my opinion. Like, because he did the same thing in Austria or in Canada, and if he gets the chance to play games with Max in Austria, he will do the same thing. Like, if there's a safety car and Russell's leading, like, he might throw in a similar little play to what he tried, as we know, back in Canada, right? I mean, obviously people have their thoughts on that attempted penalty that he tried to get them, but you know what I'm saying. And I think he does it off the track as well. I think that's my point, right? Is that George does it off the track as well, when he makes comments that he knows will have implications. I mean, he did the same thing last year when all the Max drama was happening in Qatar and in Abu Dhabi, and the comments that he made. And yeah, look, many people think that George is just very unlikable, and I get it, right? I understand where that comment comes from, but I think as a result, people tend to overlook him to some degree. But let's see how it goes for the rest of the season. Obviously, Canada was great. This weekend's should be pretty good for Mercedes, but the temperatures are getting higher. And that could be a problem for them potentially. I bet Lando will never drift too far off Piastri and will keep arguing about him being WC or not. Yeah, I think you're right, Laura. Like, I would be surprised if this championship is over before the final couple of races. Like, I do expect it to go down to the wire, even though, Lando hasn't been as strong as of late. Well, really the whole season since Australia, with the exception of Monaco. They've brought an upgrade, McLaren, and there's a feeling that it's, I don't know, helped Lando get a better grip on the car or feel it underneath him. I will say, though, this weekend is so critical for Lando because this is one of his best tracks. Like, he needs to deliver here. If he's going to deliver anywhere, like, if he loses to Piastri this weekend comfortably, then it's just difficult to see how mentally he can be too confident. I think Norris is faster, but Piastri is ice cold when the pressure is on. Like, that's totally my opinion, Paul. But, we'll see. Because at the end of the day, it's not about being faster. It's about being more consistent, scoring points week in, week out, Alain Prost style. And that's what Piastri does. And he puts together, every qualifying session, he puts together a good lap, which is good enough in the best car, and he puts together a competent race. And right now, that's too much for Lando. Lando Q3 choke again. It is a tricky, like, the thing is with Austria, it's a tricky track. It might not look like it, but it's a track of very, very fine margins. Almost every corner, you have to be right on the limit in qualifying. And Turn 1 is difficult. It's a very tricky corner. Turn 3, if you brake a bit too late, try and catch a little bit too much of it, you lose the camber. The amount of spins we saw in practice today over the last couple of days, the amount of issues the drivers run into, not seeing it at too many other circuits, right? So, yeah, I believe just minutes left. Who do you think's taking pole? Well, it's not quite minutes left. We've got minutes left in the F2 race, and then a little bit we've got more than that. Alex Dunn looks like he's going to finish 10th in this F2 race in what I've just seen. And let's talk about Alex Dunn, because yesterday he was, in many respects, the key story of the day. This is some upgrades for Red Bull, by the way, but we'll probably talk about that later. This was FP1 yesterday, and Alex Dunn, who's this kid right here, was 4th. Now, okay, what do you guys make of this? Because Alex Dunn is talented junior for sure. We know that, he's a bit of a, let's just say, reckless younger talent, some might describe him as. There's been several instances of him over the last couple of seasons, this season especially. Maybe Monaco taught him a bit, but there's no doubt that he's pretty quick, and he was in the McLaren yesterday, and he was 700ths off Oscar Piastri's fastest lap time, and actually the way that he approached things and got faster and faster was really, really impressive. So does Dunn have a 5-second penalty as well? I actually didn't see that because I've not been watching it the entire time. So yeah, there you go. I know that he had a pretty challenging start because I think he started from 3rd, but yeah, so Alex Dunn, interesting candidate. I don't know, look, one FP1 session is not necessarily going to get you a drive at Cadillac next year. But having said that, he will be on the radar for certain Formula One teams as a result. I think just the way that he approached the session was pretty impressive. Maybe he'll get some more time in the car as well later on. I don't know if it says anything about the team or about the car, or about Lando, or about Oscar, or whatever. I know that people will have perspectives on that. I honestly hope Hyundai becomes the 12th team. Otmar could be the potential team principal. F1 could get to grips with the Asian market since Hyundai is a Korean manufacturer. I think there's a good chance that that actually does happen. Like, right now, the amount of interest in getting another Formula One team on the grid is mega. We know that it's now possible as well, because for some time we thought that maybe it was never going to happen, that another F1 team came on the grids because Liberty would block it or whatever. But it's clearly true that if the numbers make sense as far as the teams are concerned, that they will do it. Rab, do you know about the Nico Rosberg selfie curse? Yes, I am very much aware of that. I don't think Nico's there this weekend. I think we would have seen him. He was in Canada, and it's so funny. Like, when I saw him put that picture out, he actually mentioned it, Nico Rosberg, on a podcast he did with Sky Sports. He was like, yeah, I did that picture deliberately not in front of any team, because Rosberg himself knows about the curse. He's now heard about the curse. And then he managed to curse turn 1 and Lando crashed there. So you couldn't make some of this stuff up, to be honest. Does Yuki have any chance of a seat on the grid next year? Could be an interesting combo. Yuki definitely has a chance. I think right now we are seeing with Yuki, like, it's the tale as old as time at Red Bull Racing. I mean, even we saw it today, Yuki in FP3, like, he spun out right at the end of the session, trying to push a bit too hard at turn 1. It's just, this is the nature of that Red Bull machine, is that it's so difficult to drive on the limit, as Max is able to do, that you come in with all the confidence and belief that you're going to be different to all the predecessors, and then you drive the car for a little while and you realize this car's tricky. You have a crash, you have a moment, and all of a sudden you start driving within yourself, and you're never able to get the most out of the car. So I feel kind of bad for Yuki, but like, it is what it is. It's the curse of that seat next to Max Verstappen at Red Bull Racing, and the margins are so tight and are going to continue to be so tight around here that I just don't see that changing much. So Yuki, I mean, if it stays like this, Yuki's not keeping the Red Bull seat next year, obviously. He's probably not going down to Racing Bulls again. So maybe there's Aston Martin, but I don't know about that. Seems unlikely. Maybe there's Cal, but he's not really been in the convo. You know what, the more I think about it, the more it is plausible that Yuki's off the grid next year. So these next 6 months are really critical for Yuki. Because if he does well enough, he can keep that drive at Red Bull. Like, he can. And Red Bull are bringing upgrades. Like, you've got to remember as well that Yuki this weekend, again, doesn't have one of the upgrades. Like, they've got a new floor, but it's just for Max. So, again, almost every weekend, Yuki's driving an inferior Red Bull. But at this point in the regulations, it's not like these upgrades are worth 0.3, right? Like, these upgrades are worth maybe half a tenth. So I feel like Yuki's on the back foot, but I want him to turn it around, I think, at this point. He probably won't. Like, Lawson is gone for sure. Like, Lawson is cooked. There's no chance. Lawson might even be gone mid-season. I don't know. Like, you know the way that Red Bull work. They could... As soon as Lindblad turns 18, it is very plausible they just kick Lawson out. The thing is, Isaac Hadjar is an interesting question, because Hadjar we know has been very good. And if you are Hadjar, do Red Bull put you up next year? Because if Red Bull promote Hadjar next season... Is it too early, right? Are Red Bull going to learn their lesson? Maybe. Maybe not. Yeah, Yuki crashed. Yeah, I mean, exactly. Yuki's crash in Imola was very costly. And that has had knock-on effects as to why they are not getting him the parts. But yeah, it's definitely plausible that Lawson's gone immediately. Max is going to regret that crash out, and eventually I feel like he will get the penalty and miss another race. That could be the difference at the end of the season. We'll see. I mean... If Max gets another penalty point today or tomorrow, he's got a ban for Silverstone. And if he gets another 3 points within the next 4 months, then he gets another ban. So Max has to be careful, because even with a ban on the line, the Max Verstappen seeing red fury moment doesn't go away. Like, he just has that in the locker, regardless of the situation. So we'll see. Do you think LN4 can be on pole today and not lose the lead in turn 1? I think he can. Would I predict it? Oh my god. Lando is the most frustrating driver on the grid right now to me by far. This was FP1, by the way. I'll just bring up for you guys FP2. So let's look at the numbers on the weekend so far. This was free practice 2 last night. So Norris was fastest by 1.5 from Oscar Piastri. Lando, since he got back in the car, has been quicker than Piastri all weekend. A tenth and a half faster. And that shouldn't be a massive surprise. Like, Austria's a great track for Lando. But to be honest, we've seen this almost all year, where Norris is consistently quicker in free practice, in Q1, often in Q2. And then in Q3, then things start to change just a little bit. And that's the frustrating thing about Lando Norris to me, is that I really wanted to believe in him. Like, I wanted to believe in him back in Canada. Like, I was in Canada, sitting at turn 6, 7 in qualifying, and I was like, this is Lando. Like, Lando's going to do something here. Obviously, the McLarens used the C6 there, whereas Max and George were on the C5, which turned out to be the better tyre. So maybe Lando was fighting an uphill battle anyway. But Piastri was about 2.2 tenths off pole. Lando ends up 7th or whatever after making loads of mistakes. And it's like, I don't know. Canada, I really wanted to believe. I wanted to believe that after Monaco, it would be a turning point for Lando. But unfortunately, as of late, it's not really been. And even if he's not quite feeling at one with this car, as he has in previous years... It's more than that, right? Because it's the mental game as well. Like, it's the mental piece of the puzzle that he is obviously still struggling with. I still kind of believe that Lando will get it together at some point. That might just be wishful thinking for an interesting championship, but like, Lando at least has the potential. It's not like Oscar's always faster all of the time and will just inevitably pull away like we've had in recent years with Max. It's at least going to stay interesting, but yeah, I think as the weeks go by, I get more... My belief becomes stronger that, yeah, Lando isn't championship material, but he's championship speed, which is, I guess, one thing, but obviously there's far more to it than just that. So, yeah, who's my favourite for poll? I guess I'll just throw this in the chat. We'll do a little poll in the chat. Poll, question mark. We are going to go Lando, Oscar. We are going to go Max. And I guess we're going to go George. I will say that you could, and feel free to, vote Charles Leclerc if you wanted to, because we will have a quick word on Ferrari and where they currently are. But within reason, I can't put Ferrari in the mix for pole. Like, as much as Leclerc looked quite competitive, I still think that Ferrari is a bit fraudulent. I mean, the amount of times I've seen Leclerc into turn 3 lock up the rears. It's just a nightmare of a car, it seems. 90% possibility Lando will fumble in quali. I hope not. Like, this is his track, man. This is his track. And Oscar's not had a very clean weekend so far. He had a pretty good lap in FP3. We'll actually have a look at the FP3 times right about now. Here we go. FP3 times. Lando 104.3, Oscar 104.4, Max 104.5, Leclerc 104.5, Hamilton 104.7. And then George and Kimi's times were unrepresentative because they did another couple of laps at the ends. But the laps they did at the end, the flying laps, were on like, I want to say 15 lap old tyres, something like that. Why not Hamilton? Okay, 2 reasons why not Hamilton. He's been off Leclerc's pace this weekend, and historically he's not even been that great around Austria. I mean, look, you can say Hamilton if you want, but like, who has the greater chance of pole, Leclerc or Hamilton? Like, there's only one answer of that right now. So, I don't know. I'd like to see Hamilton do well. Obviously, I'd like to see Ferrari do better. But if there's anyone who I have confidence in just somehow finding a magical lap in that Ferrari right now, it's going to be Leclerc. But I think that the likelihood is that it's not going to be either, let's be honest. But yeah, Ferrari brought a small upgrade this weekend. I mean, it's technically a major upgrade, but it's one part of a major upgrade. That's the talking point. Okay, let's see how this poll's getting on. Oh, wow, it's actually really competitive. You guys can keep voting in this to your heart's content because it's currently dead tied at the top. Oh my god, it's changing every second. As the votes come in, the number one is actually changing every second. Ferrari seem to be slow, no? Yeah, I mean, Ferrari, unfortunately, are... To be fair, their long-run pace has been interesting. I will bring up the numbers on that in a second. I'll also mention this. So, Ferrari have they tried a different rear wing concept. So, they had Hamilton running more downforce, and then they changed it around again. I'm just seeing here that there was a big crash at the end of the F2 race and that they might delay qualifying. I don't know if you guys are seeing that as well. I just wanted to bring up a couple of tweets here in the meantime because I wasn't watching the end of this race, obviously, because I was talking with you guys. But apparently on the last lap, there was just a mega crash at turn 3. The fans are getting their money worth today. I'm not going to lie. The fans are getting their money's worth today. Why not Lance on the pole? You know what? Lance Strolovich or whatever. Look at him go, baby. P4. So, look, this is why Lance was not at the F1 driver's dinner. You know, there was the F1 driver's dinner the other day. He didn't turn up. He was in the simulator. He was putting in the work. So, Stroll's back. This is a classic Stroll, by the way. And then he'll turn up to quali and Alonso will beat him and Stroll will be out in Q1. It is what it is. Raboy taking on the F1 British commentator role. Look, I'm not going to lie. Just naturally, there's always going to be a bit of British bias. It is what it is. I try and stay relatively unbiased, but I'm always going to have my opinions. I think it's also more fun when people have opinions. Like, I don't want my content to just be like, X happened, Y happened. Like, I'll give my opinion, and then if you guys disagree, great, let's have a conversation about it. Like, you know, everyone's got their opinions, which is good. It's what makes the sport fun. It's always fun to have like a hot take, you know. Maybe I think this, you think that, something that people disagree on. That's what it's all about. Russell and Verstappen lap 1 if they become teammates. Yeah, so this is like just an F2 classic right here, by the way. F2 and F3 just open lobbies. I will say the quality of the drivers in F2 is maybe not as strong as it could be, in part because there are a number of the good drivers got promoted, is I think what I'm trying to say, right? So, like, the Antonellis, the Behrmans, like, the Bortolettos, a lot of those guys got promoted. So, the quality of the drivers in F2 is maybe not the highest at the moment. So, there's a lot of that going on. Who's the best driver on the grid right now, in your opinion? It has to be Max. Like, there's just... The more interesting question, Joris, is who is the best driver of the season so far? Because I think you could potentially argue Russell for that. But I think best driver on the grid has to be Max. Could also... I mean, yeah, best driver of the season has Could also be Max as well. Depends on your opinion. Yuki or Hadjar in an equal car? I think Yuki. Depends on the car. I would give Yuki a smidge of an edge there. If they were to both go back to the Racing Bull, I think I would give Yuki a smidge of an edge. I don't think Hadjar would join Red Bull and do any better, to be honest. Why is there no hopium for Ferrari fans? Should have a Leclerc option. Yeah, I did mention Leclerc / Unfortunately, I can only choose 4 people in the poll. Wow, look at this. I can't believe it. The Lando fans came through. All right, I'm just going to end the poll. It's been 5 minutes. And the votes are as follows. Lando, 35%. Oscar, 27%. Max, 23%. George, 13%. So it's quite the vote split. I mean, not going to lie, it was really close until, I don't know if there were a load of Lando bots or whatever, or if a load of Lando fans joined the chat. But Lando and Oscar were like dead tied on that, and then I looked back and Lando was a little bit ahead. So yeah, I don't know. If I had to choose pole, I think I'm gonna pick Lando as well. I don't know. Why do I keep believing in Lando, man? I don't understand why I keep believing in him, but for some reason I keep believing in him. Anyway. I think that George, you can't count out Mercedes either. If I had to predict qualifying, I think George is going to be a 10th and a half off pole. Maybe a 10th. Within a 10th. Don't know, something like that. That's my opinion. I'm not a Lando fan, I just want to believe. His front suspension upgrade is the necessary change for his cornering at high speed. Yeah, I know that they've changed the front suspension, and I'm optimistic that it's going to help him and work out for him. And move Lando in the right direction, give him a better feeling of the car. The Saubers were not terrible today. To be fair to Stroll, he was actually best of the rest again today, which was, I guess, pretty impressive. I thought Behrman's lap was actually pretty solid as well, but unfortunately he's in a Haas, so it is what it is. Thoughts on Williams? Because I will say Williams were like the conversation of the start of the season. In many respects, they were the conversation back in Canada when they were 2nd and 3rd in first practice. But then it all kind of fell apart. McLaren likely dominates by 3/10. Would I be shocked if they dominate by 3/10? I think I would be shocked. I think there's a tendency that McLaren, they push very hard in the final practice session. I think Max is very much in the mix. Like, never count him out around Austria. Red Bull might find something between now and qualifying as well. So, yeah, I think McLaren are definitely the favourites, but it's going to be very marginal out there. I think it's the shortest circuit on the calendar. I will say the McLaren looks pretty mighty in the high speed. In that final sector, that's where McLaren are going to be really tough to stop, because not only do they look after their tyres better than anybody else, but their high-speed performance is really, really solid. So through like turn 8, turn 9, they're tough to beat. They're really tough to beat. No upgrade equals no points. Williams are getting stomped. Yeah, I think this is my opinion. Sleepwalker is like, the end of the day, Williams, they knew this was going to happen. As the season went on, they keep the same car. Everyone else brings a new car. It is what it is. After all the comments of Horner talking, McLaren fans crying because Red Bull won, he then in the same sentence will say that Red Bull is not liked because the drivers aren't British. The call of this man. Yeah, it's just Christian Horner things at the end of the day. How much does pole really matter? The DRS is huge here, like 50% of the track is a DRS zone. Yeah, pole is not as relevant here as it is elsewhere, and I guess that's a little good segue into talking a little bit about the race pace data, which is what we have right about here. So this is what we're looking at. The two McLarens were the quickest. Norris on his mediums, Piastri on his hards. Their average lap time was 109.7, something like that. Antonelli's medium tyre run was, as you guys can see, fluctuating quite a lot, but on average was really rather strong. And then it was the two Ferraris then, and then Max was further back than that. So this was based on yesterday's practice session, and I don't know, what's the implication? The implication is that McLaren are the strongest, but maybe not by a million miles. Who's going to be your surprise, My surprise of qualifying. Can I say Stroll? Oh, I like surprise because it's like, okay, is it a good surprise or a bad surprise? That's a good question. Lando should have at least spoken to Rosberg, I think. I would agree, but I don't necessarily blame Lando, but I think that Lando should recognise that the current situation is not particularly sustainable. Chat, he is offering free hopium for Ferrari fans. Yeah, look, this is your hopium, Ferrari fans. Look, the race pace is looking strong. And I think Ferrari's race pace will be strong. The issue is if they qualify 5th and 6th, then good luck with that. Lance Stroll Q3, Alonso out in Q1. I mean, look, Alonso had a spin, didn't he? So lots of drivers have been struggling out there. Last year, they were 7/10 separates in Q1. I think the driver that I'm really concerned about, again, is Yuki Tsunoda, unfortunately. Because, I mean, look, you can see Tsunoda's long run here was like miles off. And obviously, that's not the only thing. But my point, I think, is Yuki might be 5 to 6 tenths off max, which is a lot around this track, especially when qualifying is going to be tight. So, yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about that. Good surprise from the midfield. Okay, let's have a look at the midfield and choose a good surprise. I mean, it's interesting when you think about the midfield, because pretty much everyone qualifies as the midfield nowadays. And kind of back in the day, you would have said Hadjar or something. But I'm going to say, who's a good surprise to like make Q3 or something? Do I go Stroll? That would be too outrageous, wouldn't it? I think it would be too outrageous. Checo had that issue last year at Austria. Gavi points, yeah. I'm not going to lie, I was watching the Sauber onboards, and the car just looked horrible to handle. Like, I would like to say maybe Bortoleto or Hulkenberg, but I don't know. I was watching those laps on the onboards, and I thought the car looked just very difficult to drive. Might be wrong. The Haas, I don't know. Unfortunately, the Haas has just been a little bit too far away. I think I'm actually going to say Stroll. You know what? I'm going to do it. I don't care. I'm going to do it. I'm going to believe. This weekend, I'm going to believe that Stroll is going to make it to Q3. That's my good surprise. Good surprise of the midfield is Stroll Q3. Because he did it in FP2. He's done it in FP3, kind of. No one's going to believe. No one is going to believe. But I think that Alonso could obviously do the job, and he's qualified very well the last couple of rounds. But he did have that spin, so I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's Stroll's weekend. Sauber first Q3. I think Sauber could make it. I just don't think they will. So yeah, Stroll's getting my tip for the weekend. Lewis will shock everyone. Hamilton on pole. Look, I'd love to see a Hamilton pole, but I do think that's just pure Delulu, unfortunately. Ocon, bring back Perez, watch him cook, watch him crash in red flag Q1. Yeah, that's the other thing with Stroll, is that it's very plausible that he drops a wheel in the gravel at the final corner, spins out and crashes. I think someone could well do that, to be fair. Liam Lawson Q2. Like, into Q2 or out in Q2? Because, like, into Q2 would be maybe expected. I don't know, it depends what you think. Unfortunately, Alpine are also just cooked. Stroll P20 after going in the wall. He's beginning to believe in the Stroll World Championship. It's happening, baby. It's happening. 7 years in for Stroll. He's finally going to come good all of a sudden. Stroll's always good for like a couple of weekends every season where he actually delivers. So I'm still, like, Stroll's one of those drivers who he's genuinely, in my opinion, he's genuinely better than people give him credit for. That's not to say he's good, because he's not good compared to like where he should be. But he's not bad. Like, I don't know. That's just my opinion on Stroll. I really buy into the idea that drivers that people dislike get underrated. And Stroll is not well liked, so I think he gets underrated. But, like, people think that Stroll is here, like, off the screen. He's actually, like, here. and good drivers are like up here. So I'm not trying to gas up Stroll. I'm saying that people think this guy's dog shit. He's actually not. He's just not very good. So that's my opinion. Stroll would have been good if he did his best and wasn't a daddy money boy. I think that's fair enough. I think that's fair enough. But like, Stroll does have a good performance in him. Like, it is in there somewhere. We just don't see it very often. And they're like, look, at the end of the day, if it wasn't for daddy's money, he wouldn't be on the grid anymore. He may have got his chance at some point because he was pretty good in the junior formulas. So I think he deserved a chance in F1, and he did well with his chance early doors. The last few years, Stroll has frustrated me as a fan because I felt like he's taken a seat away from someone who cares more. And I still believe that. But is he the worst driver I've ever seen? No. You know, he's no Latifi at the end of the day. Is Stroll better than Gasly? No. Gasly's better than Stroll, in my opinion. Stroll is the best of the worst. I would rate Stroll above Ocon. Is that a hot take? I think that is actually really quite a hot take, because I wouldn't. I also, in my opinion, Ocon is a bit overrated by the fan base. So clearly you think he's terrible, which is, like, I respect it to some degree, because not many people think that Ocon's terrible, in my opinion. But I don't think that Ocon, like, I think Gasly's better than Ocon, for example, even though maybe the little bit of time at Alpine wouldn't necessarily justify that. But again, I think I might be biased against Ocon because he's just such a terrible teammate. I don't know. It's not always been the case, right? But you know that Ocon, when he was with Alonso, when he was at Gasly, like, I think Ocon actually seems like a really likable guy. I just don't like him. I don't like the driver that he is on the track, I think. So I think I'm biased against Ocon. I think I tend to think he's worse than he is. And I'm probably biased in favour of Behrman because he was brought up just down the road from where I was brought up. So, you know, got to recognise that there's always a bit of bias. But I've been pretty impressed with Behrman this season. Like, I think he's done pretty well. And Ocon's solid, yeah, you know, Ocon's solid. He's very similar to Gasly, in my opinion. I just think Gasly's a bit better. Still in his feelings, but Mr. Gasly's still your girl. Is quali delayed or no? Good question. Let me hit the refresh on Twitter and see if it's delayed. They said it was going to be delayed, or someone said it might be, but it doesn't seem like it is. I think it's going to be all good to go. Yeah, countdown to qualifying in 10 minutes. 10 minutes time, qualifying begins. Someone's going to get pole. Someone's not going to get pole. Actually, 19 drivers are not going to get pole. I have no bias towards Stroll. He's objectively shit. Ocon is the F1 Purge. If all drivers had the same car, Max would win every race. He wouldn't win every race. He may win, you know, you can't win every race. It is what it is. And I don't know, like, the thing is, F1 is a complicated sport because there's no such thing as just like, oh, the same car. It's like, okay, what type of car? Like, what characteristics of that car do we have? People often say this, right? They're like, oh, if F1 was in equal machinery, this would happen or that would happen. It's like, well, what would happen is very dependent on what type of car is the car that everyone drives. Is it a Red Bull? Give everyone on the grid a Red Bull. Yeah, Max wins basically every race. Give everyone on the grid a, let's say, Haas or Sauber. Does Max win every race? Probably at a lower frequency because the car has different characteristics. Some drivers like a very snappy car with a very strong front end like Max does. Some drivers prefer the rear to be a bit more stable and have a bit of understeer baked into the car. So, like, that's always my opinion on when people say equal machinery. It's like, okay, which car are you giving me? Are you giving me a car that's understeery? Or are you giving me a car that's oversteery? Because that will determine what happens. But yeah, Max is the best driver. I'm not going to deny that. Do you turn off the stream at the start of quali? For now, I do, yeah. For now, I do. So I can go watch qualifying, prepare all the content for the video, make the video, and also just chill out for a second, have a drink, and relax. Because, you know, otherwise I'll just be making content all day, which is what I do most of the day. But at some point I will be doing the watch-alongs. Like, the watch-alongs definitely will be happening. I'm getting ready to run them at some point. Maybe not for everything or every session, but definitely I'll be doing more streams for you guys in due course as well. The Lance Stroll hate is overforced. The funny thing is, Jaden, about the Lance Stroll hate is that it goes both ways. Like, because Lance Stroll gets a lot of hate, people also like to give him love in return. Like, there's a natural pushback there. So, you know, it is what it is. Equal machinery is dumb. It can't be the pinnacle if we stop all innovation. Yeah, agreed. I mean, like, it's Formula One, right? You build a car to a formula. You don't build Spec 1 or whatever. Alonso would dominate in a V12. Exactly, right? So what type of car... For example, when you talk about equal machinery, are you giving people a car from the 80s, right? The type of cars that Senna used to drive? Because, you know, those cars were driven differently, right? Like, what if you put everyone in a 1950s machine that Fangio is winning his championships in? What happens then? Like, I don't know. Like, the thing is, all these drivers are very adaptable, but some drivers are more adaptable than others, and some drivers prefer different things to other drivers. And when you're talking about some of the 20 best drivers in the world, there's going to be inevitably, like, the gap between the guys, the best in the world, is never going to be insanely mega, depending on what type of machine you give them. Will you be able to co-stream? I mean, I can't show you guys the race while it happens, otherwise I'm cooked. But what I can do is show you guys other things while the race happens, and some of those things we're working on at the moment. Can Lewis win Silverstone? I'm going to be honest, Mo, Leicester, I have given up all faith in Ferrari and Hamilton at Silverstone. I've just accepted the fact that the podium streak is going to end, and I'm just going to say, you know what, it was good while it lasted. That's my opinion. And Hulk's not a champion, but deserves a podium more than Stroll. Yeah, I mean, Stroll's also not a champion. I think that... Does Hulkenberg deserve a podium? I think it's always a question about deserving anything, because, you know, I don't really like the idea of deserving. It's like, okay, did you earn it or did you not earn it? That tends to be my opinion. But he's been so close that I would love to see Hulkenberg get a podium. I just don't think it's really going to be happening, right? Can George win Silverstone? Absolutely. Absolutely. They were on pole last year. It was 1-2 in qualifying last year at Silverstone for Mercedes. These next few rounds will be where Mercedes should do the best. Like Austria, Silverstone, Hungary, Spa. Like, you know, these are Mercedes tracks. So I'm hoping that they can really make the title fight interesting. I also think the thing for Mercedes, if they get good, it keeps the championship at the top very compelling. Like, let's say George beats Piastri on a couple of weekends. Like, it's not like Lando has to win every race and gain 7 points every weekend and has to do that 4 times to overtake Oscar. It's like, if Lando wins and then other people are in the conversation, then it means that the gap at the top of the championship will stay closer. But it also means that it's maybe harder for Max. Or maybe easier for Max. If Max wins and George is second and Antonelli's third and Norris is fourth, then all of a sudden, you know, the championship potentially turns around. So anyway, qualifying just about to begin. It's been a pleasure talking with you all for the last hour, and I'll be back probably tomorrow to do the same thing again. If not, I'll be back for Silverstone. I'm not going to Silverstone, so I will be in this room talking about qualifying and talking about the Grand Prix. And I'll see you in a couple of hours when we do the video recapping qualifying. So I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to be delusional, and I'm taking Lando Norris for pole position. The smart money is probably on Piastri. I think there's a good chance that Russell does it. I don't believe in Ferrari, and maybe keep an eye on Antonelli, actually. I'm going to say keep an eye on Antonelli today. That's my little out of the... Because Antonelli, just my final comment, he is like a sim racing kid. There's no driver on the grid who takes more curb than Antonelli does. Like, he will... I don't know, he just maximizes every single piece of the track, and sometimes it doesn't work for him, but he will be on the absolute limit. Like, around these corners, he will be on the absolute limit. And I think maybe Antonelli's not a driver to watch in terms of maybe pole, but like Antonelli, you're going to want to watch his laps, because his laps are going to be margins. going to be margins. I don't think qualifying's delayed. I'm seeing us load in right now to the Styrian Hills, or whatever you call it. What a beautiful circuit that is. No Crofty, we've got Harry Benjamin this weekend. It is what it is. Okay, take care everyone. I will talk to you in a little bit.